Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Between the Lanes podcast. We are on officially episode 4 after the Lost podcast a while back. I'm CVH, the owner of Between the Lanes, and we've got about an hour of discussion of the Elder Scrolls Legends card game ahead of us. My guests today include, as usual, we have EarthP0w3R with us. How's it going?
What's going on, guys?
Going pretty good, Carl. And for our special guest today, we have someone who you might be familiar with if you have ever searched Elder Scrolls Legends on the YouTube search bar, JustinLarson. How's it going, Justin?
Hey, it's going great, man. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. It's great to have a YouTube celebrity and honestly one of the best content creators for Legends, especially definitely for YouTube. Definitely probably the best content creator on YouTube for the game with us to discuss all kinds of things. So just a quick recap. For those of you who have only gotten your news about Legends from the podcast, I'm very sorry that was a poor decision because if you haven't noticed, the Between the Lanes podcast has been on a bit of a hiatus recently. After a few months, a lot of crazy things have happened in real life, and there was a period of downtime for news for the game. But we are back, looking to make this back to being a regular thing. Looking forward to really discussing a lot of Legends today, especially. We have a lot of things that have happened over the past couple months that we could at least touch on. A lot of things have changed in the game, so hopefully we can at least give our opinions on those. And now that we've had like a few weeks to adapt to some of these changes, really assess how they've changed the game and what we're thinking about for the future. So, before we get into all that, though, I'd like to give Justin a chance. For those of you who might not have searched YouTube on Legends, which is definitely a good thing to do, make sure to do it if you have not. But for those of you who might not know JustinLarson, what is there to tell about your experience in past card games and what you do for Legends?
Sure. Well, like I said, thanks again for having me on here. I was in the closed beta starting in May for Elder Scrolls Legends, and I got into that by I got an email because I was signed up for Elder Scrolls Online a couple years ago, and I said the beta's coming up, and I decided I'd give it a shot because I learned how to play Magic the Gathering while I was in prison, and wanted to get into the ground floor of a game that wasn't too expensive, and this provided a cool opportunity to do that. When the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, got lifted, nobody was making videos, and so I had some gift cards to Target, and I bought a webcam and a headset, and I just started recording, and I've been doing it ever since, releasing videos 4 or 5 times a week usually, and I've been having a great time. Other than this game, I played a little Hearthstone. Like I said, I played Magic, and I played a lot of Texas Hold'em poker.
Nice. That's a pretty good repertoire of card games, honestly. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I won't bore people with the details of Carl and I in card games, but they have heard it before. Check out the
I would
past
like
podcasts.
to add real quick, though, congratulations, JustinLarson. I heard you're recently engaged.
I am.
Oh,
Thank
yeah?
you very much. Yeah, I
Congratulations.
proposed to my girlfriend Sandra in the Black Hills of South Dakota this last week.
That is incredible. Awesome.
It's all the
Thank
applause
you.
we can muster with the current crowd.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. So, the first thing we should probably talk about, let's go chronologically to all the stuff that we may have missed with the hiatus. So, there was a period of downtime where there wasn't a whole lot of things going on via balance changes or anything else, but it didn't take long. I think about a little over a month. It was in November 2016. We got a letter from the devs, and a giant sweeping patch of nerfs basically happened to the game. Stuff like Tazcad going to 9 cost, House Kinsman to 3-2, Moonlight Werebat to 4-2, and a bunch of nerfs to Control Mage. So basically, we all have the list in front of us, and for the YouTube video, I'll probably edit some of these in when we talk about them, if you're watching this after the fact, after the stream. But basically, how do we think these nerfs really, what are our favorite nerfs? What are things that, after playing with these nerfs for the last month or so, what might we like the most? What nerfs maybe we don't like? I'm going to start with Justin, because I really haven't gotten much of his opinion about this. I know you play a lot of ladder, obviously, because you have to make a lot of content for YouTube. What were your initial impressions, versus some of your impressions now about these nerfs? Let's kick it off.
Sure. Well, when they were first announced, at the time I was playing a sorcerer deck that abused Nakreen, the Dragon Priest. So that nerf I was pretty disappointed in, but because I was doing some broken things. And my most popular video, actually, I'm playing against Kalento, and I steal the game by doing some broken things with that card. So I was a little sad about that one. But overall, I think the changes are pretty cool. I mean, ultimately, the ones I like the most now, after having some time on the ladder, I think the change to House Kinsman and Moonlight Werebat's toughness down to 2 has been nice and balanced, kind of a subtle change. You know, it didn't break the cards, make them unplayable, but I feel like they were a little too ubiquitous for a while, and now they feel a little more counterable.
Yeah, I
Um,
definitely agree.
yeah, I don't really understand the change to healing potion. I mean, like everybody, I think playing against control mage for me was a little annoying sometimes, but I wouldn't have targeted healing potion as the card that I nerfed. But I mean, the deck certainly is a lot less popular now, so maybe it was the right choice.
Yeah, some people actually. It's worth noting that. Well, first of all, I'd like to agree with the House Kinsman and Moonlight Werebat changes. I have to say, the entire big sweeping nerfs that have happened since the last podcast, House Kinsman and Werebat, along with Elusive Schemer to a degree, now that I've gotten used to it, those are definitely my favorite nerfs. They're pretty elegant. You know, sometimes just changing something as simple as one stat point can really accomplish the job of making a card just a little more balanced while keeping the soul of it intact with the effect and everything.
Yeah, I
Uh,
totally agree.
but yeah, Healing Potion actually, the Control Mage nerfs, such as Healing Potion, the Brilliant Experiment, and like you mentioned, Ocarine, that's actually like probably the topic that has been most disliked by the people who've reviewed the nerfs. They were like, oh, Control Mage, oh yeah.
Mhm.
What do you think, Carl? What do you think about these nerfs? Any comment on those?
To basically mirror a lot of what Justin Larson said, Control Mage, I think, got hit the worst out of just these particular nerfs, even though Fireball, or Firebolt, excuse me, got a considerable boost now that House Kinsman and Werebat are targetable by those cards. And they were just so prominent in, Archer. Archer's always been at the top of the hill in terms of legends. Like, that's just the go-to deck for a lot of players either getting into it or even players now who are just trying to hit top a legend or get to legend. Archer just seems to be the pick for that guy who's trying to climb aggressively. So, like you said, those elegant nerfs to Archer stunted it a lot, and then Control Mage being the other, powerful force when in the early stages of this game took a heck of a hit with Brilliant Experiment, Schemer going to 3-1. Healing Potion going to 2, Ocarine going to 9, like just a lot of hits overall. And prior to that, Mana Core getting hit, and even now the one that's not on this list, Burn and Pillage, getting nerfed to 5 and only hitting one lane. Archer and Control Mage just always seem to take the brunts of these, as well as the decks that fall out and use those cards as well. So it's interesting to see how powerful these decks were. And now it's opening the spots to, be able to, Kinsman and Werebat were 3-ofs in every deck that ran green, and now you don't see them as much in those colors. Same thing with Schemer and Nockareem in any sort of late game centered blue deck. So you don't see those cards as much anymore. So it's interesting that how much that opened the door to being able to just experiment with new things and have them also be playable.
Yeah, but it's pretty great that yeah, like you said, they're still playable. A lot of people, obviously, with every nerf, even the ones that do turn out to be unplayable, everyone, the first reaction is, oh my god, the card's not going to be playable anymore, what am I going to do?
Right.
My dust, my soul gems, help us all. But it's good to see, Kinsman, still probably the most powerful card if you're just aiming to play an agility deck that wants to be ahead on life by, I don't know, let's say turn 5 or so. I can't
Yeah.
why on earth I would want to be ahead on turn 5 on life. But yeah, like, even the Moonlight Werebat for some decks, these cards are still playable. They just don't feel unfair. I haven't, I've played a lot with these cards post-nerf, and at no point that I think they were, unfair after the nerf. Whereas before, both of those cards just felt way too powerful, and we talked about that, I think, in the past podcast with Admirable, was when it was really discussed for the first time. But yeah, I think it's interesting, the Control Mage nerfs, because we, now that it's good that we're actually discussing these so far since the nerfs have happened, because yeah, we've really not seen a whole lot of Control Mage on the ladder, and the ones that we have seen are super teched against aggro, and they've been successful in that regard. But yeah, the Brilliant Experiment nerf, it's hard to nerf a card like that because it's really the effect that's the problem.
Right.
And you change the cost, but at a certain point, it's either going to be playable and very, very good, or it's not going to be worth the slot. And I think that's the kind of thing we're seeing. But I think it's good that they're getting those nerfs out of the way early in open beta before those cards generate some problems and really get abused as people start trying to be spikes and finding the absolute best strategies and the most insane combos with cards like that in Ocarina. I think it's good that they're being nerfed now, and I think a lot of the reason Control Mage isn't being seen right now is partially due to those, but more so because Histgrove and mid-range decks are so good, and also partly the card pool. As we get more cards that can fit into Control Mage, hopefully they'll overcome the nerfs and the sort of the poor meta placement they're in right now.
Yeah, that sounds good. I have seen Bradford Lee play a new version of his new version of Control Mage recently on his stream, and he was doing some pretty cool things using Camel and stuff to
Or close call, yeah.
in close call. Yeah, I mean it was a much more complicated list. Looked it wasn't just remove threats, and then win with some giant creature. It looked like a much higher skill cap deck, but I think that there's a lot of potential there still. And to be honest with you, I kind of feel like we've only had maybe 15, 20 cards added in the last 6 months, and the meta has just continued to change. Every week it feels like something new is big, and I think that we're far from having a solved meta. So I think that it's possible there's still a tier one excellent control mage list out there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's just, the beginning of the experimentation. I just mean, like, in general, we've seen a little bit less of the deck, and obviously, Archer was hit as well. Other decks are hit, but that's the one that has really sort of fallen off. But I think it's due to a lot of factors. So overall, and I guess I'll start with Carl on this question, since I started with Justin last time. How do you think Direwolf and Bethesda, I guess it's mostly Direwolf, are at handling nerfs in general so far? Are they doing a good job? Are they nerfing enough? Are they nerfing too much? Are the nerfs good?
I can see where a lot of people do get up in arms because we've had nerfs every 30 days. As this game's been in open beta, at least from I've seen. I don't know how much they were doing in closed beta. Justin can probably talk a little bit more on that, but it seems like every 30 days we get a handful of nerfs. This list being, the biggest of them. This, how many was this? Like 10 or
Yeah,
9 or 10?
yeah. I should stop saying nerfs
So
because
more
there were
than that.
actually some
So,
buffs too.
exactly, I was
Yeah.
just going to add to that. Direwolf just as well has shown that they can actually increase the power of some cards too, without actually breaking them. Rothgar Artisan, Orc Gatekeeper, or Gatekeeper getting the biggest nerf out of that, or the biggest buff out of that. Becoming just a super playable card that you see in almost every aggressive red strategy, every mid-range red strategy. Just by giving it prophecy, red needed help in that regard. We talked about it in the first podcast, how red didn't really have or know what it was doing. All the other colors kind of seemed set in what they were meant to accomplish, and red was just sort of everywhere. And with the buff to Or Gatekeeper, now it seems like it's more of an aggressive color that can be used in that regard. So that was cool to see that they are adding buffs, and then the Volan Drug getting breakthrough. I don't know how relevant that one's been. I've seen some people messing around with it, but
It has directly won me one game. The
yeah,
Bowling Run
so
Breakthrough.
it's cool that cards that were genuinely seen or generally seen as unplayable are now seeing more play just by simple little buffs as well. And the cards that were getting nerfed only got nerfed to a point to. I don't think any of the cards on this list are unplayable. Nakarim maybe being the only one out of that might be.
Yeah.
But even still, it still has a role that it can play in certain strategies. So
Healing Potion is really pushing
to,
the boundaries, man. I don't
yeah,
see
to-
myself playing that Healing Potion.
but to answer
Yeah.
your question, I think Direwolf is doing a good job, and they're getting it out of the way now. It feels like they're targeting us as the player base, but I constantly have to remind myself every time I wake up in the morning that Legends is in beta. So it's a constant reminder.
If they're gonna upset a group of people about a nerf, I'm not saying people are upset, but if they're gonna, make people a little bit, questionable about how many nerfs are happening, it better be now as far as, the scope of people who are affected by it. Once like hundreds of thousands of people hopefully play this game, that's a lot of people to all of a sudden, drop this nerf bomb on. So Justin, what are your thoughts? Good at nerfing?
I mean, my only other experience with nerfs is, of course, when I was playing Hearthstone for a little while. And compared to that experience, I mean, this is, a whole other world, right? Like, cards aren't made completely unplayable. I mean, like, Healing Potion aside, obviously. But I think that, Carl, you mentioned Rothgar Artisan. I wanted to point this one out real quick. I think since the change, Rothgar Artisan has become a really, really interesting card. I think it's a great arena pick, and I think it's pretty playable in decks, not just necessarily orc decks. And it's the kind of like small buff, just a single point of toughness that shows me that they're paying a lot of attention to what can make a card better. What can make a card playable. I think their nerfs have generally been fantastic, actually. And you asked about closed beta. In closed beta, there were balance changes every 2 or 3 weeks, maybe. Um, and I think that it's important to recognize how much Direwolf listens to the community, right? Because not just in closed beta, but like if you look at the things that are being changed, like the Reddit community, is a good place to check where people are complaining about certain cards. I think House Kinsman, Tazcad, Moonlight Werebat are definitely cards that people were complaining about, and they're willing to take action on it. And I hope I'm not doing anything terrible with the NDA here, but Rothgar Artisan getting pushed to a 2-3 is something I want to point out as far as listening to the community, because in closed beta, Rothgar Artisan was originally a 2-3, and then Orcs were overpowered for a while because of some other stuff, and Rothgar Artisan was bumped down to a 2-2. And the fact that they're willing to go back and change it again now just shows me that they've got their finger on the pulse of what's going on in this game.
That's really, really cool. And it's not even a card that you'd think, if you're listing a powerful Legends cards or not powerful Legends cards, it wouldn't really make the top 10 list of either, but it's really cool that they're going back retroactively buffing a card after it's been nerfed just as like a support role. It's really good foresight, I think. And
I agree.
It's really good adaptation. I'm really excited because that doesn't, if a card like Rothgar Artisan can get changed and then rechanged based on a bunch of other factors, that really, basically everything's on the table, And we've even seen that, I didn't expect Full and Drung to get Breakthrough, but, now that it has Breakthrough, it just sort of makes sense. And, like, the tiny nerfs, like the Dunmer Nightblade nerf, all of these things, like, just point to the fact that they could be more aggressively nerfing. And, yeah, I totally agree. The Hearthstone, the nerfs, it's just, coming from that game to this game, it's just a breath of fresh air as far as nerfs are concerned. And you'd think that maybe you wouldn't be able to enjoy that many sweeping changes, but honestly, if they keep up the trend of maybe even just a change or two every month based on what's been happening, not even saying they have to every month, but if we knew that that was even possible, that would be fantastic for anyone coming from that game, because it just matters so much. How long did it take them to finally change Yogg-Saron?
Well,
right, exactly.
I mean, it's interesting to see too, because I mean, you and I and Justin playing Magic, we come from physical card games where things like this aren't possible. Like it's power creep. You have to come out with a new set or rotate it out every other year to basically get the changes that we want to a meta. But with an online digital card game, much like Hearthstone and very much like this one, you can just make these subtle little changes and shake things up or balance things out very, very well. And again, to mirror exactly what Justin said, Direwolf's doing an excellent job of it, and they're listening to their players, which is, coming from other certain physical card games, it's just very, very nice.
Yeah. I do want to give a quick shout out, and I'm sure you guys will echo me. Wasn't planning on the shout out, but yeah, I think I say it a lot. Everyone from Direwolf, everyone from Bethesda, just the level of communication, besides the fact that we played physical card games, even other online card games, I have yet to experience that level of communication and basically just community involvement that we've seen from the developers and the people in charge of on the Bethesda side of things. They're just very involved, and it's very nice to see. It's very reassuring coming as a
heck,
player.
Maricon's in your chat right now. Like, that's just awesome.
Yeah. And he might not even be the only one. And he subscribed, which is great. I love you. But yeah, it's just really nice to see. And
I totally agree.
The support is just amazing. So
And they were really great in closed beta too. I mean, like they were in the Discord channel back then, asking questions about, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Just starting conversations with everybody who was participating. I mean, they've always been really great about that.
Yeah, and beta's really about just making the game better. And how else do you do that? You just get a bunch of people to play it, and then you have to listen to them. It's all about listening, and they're doing a really great job of that. So, really excited. It makes me really happy for the future. Along with these nerfs, it just goes hand in hand. Community involvement and nerfs that reflect what the community needs and wants and what the meta can benefit from. And I think so far, as far as nerfs go and card changes, A+ for me. Don't know if we're doing a grading thing. I would say A+. A+ is all around.
Yeah, I agree.
Alright, so the next major thing, besides the nerfs that we've pretty much agreed, fantastic changes, basically on the whole, and we'll see how they develop in the future. Well, I guess, Alright, so since we've talked about nerfs actually, and since Burn and Pillage also was nerfed recently, really quick before we move on to the next topic, do we think there's any potential changes upcoming? What would be one or two changes you would like to see? Let's start with Justin. Anything you want to see nerfed coming up soon?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Off the top of my head, nothing comes to mind. The game feels pretty balanced. There's certainly some archetypes stronger than others, but I think pound for pound, like, as far as cards that go in every deck that can support that run that color, Aside from some removal spells like Piercing Javelin and Lightning Bolt, the only card that comes to mind is Daggerfall Mage. But I don't think it's necessarily it needs a nerf. I think we're at a pretty good point right now as far as balance goes.
Yeah. Carl, any thoughts? Anything?
You and I have talked about this one a lot, but Source Marshal being able to summon itself, I think, is a big one that a lot of people still talk about. Not so much just like changing it to say, hey, summon a card that costs 4 or less for free, or reduce the cost by 4, but just saying Soul Rest can't summon another Soul Rest. I think that one's important because it's just so game breaking. 99% of the time. But other than that one, just looking at like the top 5 like Legends cards, they're all pretty straightforward and coming from again just a background of many games. Cards like Piercing Javelin, Lightning Bolt, Firebolt, just all the like standard removal. Like those are just like the most powerful cards they're seen in the majority of decks, and I think they're all incredibly balanced. Nothing to really harp on other than the Soul Rest.
Yeah,
Daggerfall's interesting though to talk about what Justin was saying. Like I don't know if it needs a nerf, but it is interesting how powerful that card really is right now.
Yeah, it's definitely, especially after the Schemer nerf, it's basically like the best cycle, best to trade. It's a very, very good card. The only thing holding it back is maybe its speed. It's a little bit slow, but yeah. Based on what you're saying with the Javelin and the Lightning Bolt, a lot of people don't like that one-for-one removal such good one-for-one removal, like Piercing Javelin especially, is a prophecy. I personally don't mind it because I've played other games where it's just kind of expected,
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I don't mind the one-for-one thing. I don't mind those cards having prophecy. I mean, you'll lose a handful of games when you're at 3 and your opponent prophesies a Lightning Bolt, but I'm not hugely concerned with that. But I want to say real quick about the Soul Rest Marshal thing. I have to agree that the least fun thing that can happen to me in this game is when my opponent on turn 4 goes Marshal, Marshal, Marshal.
That is true, and I can actually attest to it not even being fun to do anymore. Like, I'm just,
You feel bad.
Yeah.
You have to emote sorry.
The first time you feel good, and at a certain point it becomes a thing where, well, no one's gonna feel really good, but someone's gonna feel really bad.
Has anyone talked about it on just I guess in media that you can Odaving out on, or get an Odaving out on 10 if you high roll with a Soul Rest?
On 10.
Or on 5, excuse me.
No,
But,
you did the math. It was something that can potentially happen.
Your Thieves Guild and Odaving, Ring of Magicka out with Smother, and then Soul Rest into the third Soul Rest reduces a card's cost by 10, and then you can Odaving. So
Wait, reduces a card's cost by 10.
yeah, because Soul Rest happens twice. After
You're right.
Yeah. So it reduces a card's cost by 10 instead of 5, and then you Odaving on 5.
I think I'm
Thought that was
following how this works.
I'm furiously taking notes right now for a future video.
Right, you have to high roll incredibly, but it is possible. So,
As Justin
or you
Larson
can
makes the
or you can like
transition to
Nocturne
trolldom.
it if you can Nocturne the high roll with the Soul Rest.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you don't even need Thieves Guild. You can just Nocturne on Soul Rest and then draw your Odaving and then play it. So
Yeah.
even more fun.
Yeah, one issue that doesn't relate to Soul Rest is that, there was a time when it seemed broken even more so because the
Yeah.
only decks around were basically, like you said, Control Mage and Archer, and there wasn't really... I didn't feel like there was enough aggro in the meta, and we talked about that with the red. That's probably why Morgul Gatekeeper got a bit of a buff. But, when it's just mid-range and control being played, mid-range is going to beat control, and then mid-range mirrors are going to feel bad because it's whoever soul rests. But, I do think that, it does... There are definitely more decks that can counter a Soul Rest game plan right now, and it's not even just Soul Rest that's very good on turn 5, because Black Robe Necromancer is kind of the same get-ahead card, Golden Saint's kind of similar. The problem really does come to when it can Soul Rest into another Soul Rest, because it already is better than Golden Saint. It's a 4/4 for 5, Golden Saint's a 4/4 for 6, and, on average you're getting something that's better than the second 4/4 with Guard with the Soul Rest for 1 Magicka less. The problem does only come into play when you get double Soul Rest, and it's not a nerf that really affects a lot of games, I would say.
No, I agree.
Because, how often does it really happen that you get double Soul Rested? It just feels bad when it does happen, and it's just it's the thing you do remember. But I think if there is a nerf available that can reduce the amount of, upset people are while keeping the card basically the same power level, I think that would be good. Just reduce the next card you play by whatever it is, 5, except for Soul Rest and Martial. But maybe I'm just wrong and they've tested it and it would make it terrible. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just also interesting to note, the first nerfs that came around in open beta were Soul Rest going from 6 to 5. It's like the card's already gotten a nerf, and it's still so powerful.
Yep,
So,
yep. But like, as far as other cards, I don't really think anything sticks out for me either. I have to agree with Justin. It's really hard to tell right now. Maybe we'll discover more things in the future. But, alright, so we've talked about the nerfs. And piggybacking on that, there have been other things that we have yet to cover since the podcast has been pretty much gone. And basically, one of the biggest things that's happened, one of the biggest events for Elder Scrolls Legends so far, was when they announced Shogorath, which I just mispronounced horribly, taking over the arena. Sheogorath, there it is. He took over the arena for a week, or 5 or 6 days rather, and he turned the arena into the Chaos Arena, which you could play instead of Versus Arena for the same price, and there were wacky things going on, such as lane effects that you might have only seen in Solo Arena up to that point, new lane effects, some of which were great, some of which made me hate everything. And yeah, so they also had a special day where content creators such as myself and JustinLarson were able to play it a day early on stream, and a lot of us did, and we had a lot of fun games. You can check both of our channels for previous content about that, but it was a ton of fun, and along with it they released the Madhouse collection, which we can talk about in a bit too. But what are our thoughts? I'll start with Justin because he got to play it early as well. What do you think about Chaos Arena? Was this a great event, or did it fall flat?
I thought this was the coolest thing, the most fun I've had actually playing Elder Scrolls Legends so far. And it wasn't just so much about the lane effects and the different, wacky things that were happening in the arena event. It was the sense of community. I felt like we were all experiencing this cool new thing together, and I think that the preview day was a lot of fun. I think we had some. I think viewership numbers for Twitch for streamers on that day were really high, and I know I was watching streamers as I played. I had a great time doing it, and I think the way they promoted it was excellent, and I think it was just all-around success. I'm a huge fan of the way they did that.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen streamer numbers, besides the promoted streams, I don't think I've seen, like, the organic, homegrown Legend streamers. Like, I don't think I've seen the number at which they were streaming, or the number of viewers they were pulling as high since that event, or before that event ever. It was pretty crazy for content creators, and it was a really good thing to do. So, yeah, Carl, thoughts on Chaos Arena, since you didn't get to play it early, but obviously you played at least a run or two of it.
Yeah,
What are your
I
thoughts
did.
on this
Again, to mirror Justin almost identically, it was awesome to just see how well it pulled the community together. It's not something that they had to do for us. They didn't have to give us new cards. They didn't have to give us the arena. But it proves that Direwolf and Bethesda are listening to their players and are creating things, to pump up and get their beta testers more involved. A lot of players, and I'm sure the both of you, as well as everybody in chat right now, have seen that the numbers of players who are playing as actively as they were when open beta first came out have dropped considerably in the past 5 to 6 months, and that's just because we're still in beta. A lot of people who got into it just to get into it, and they're kind of just waiting for the game to come out now. And them doing something like this with the Chaos Arena and everything kind of brought everybody back from the grave, to speak. There's a lot of us who are still out here making content and playing the game, but I think it kind of ramped everybody up and got everybody excited again, which was really cool to see. And then just them giving us more cards. Again, it's not something they had to do, but it was really neat to be in beta and being able to do something like this. It seems like an event that you would do with hundreds of thousands of players when the game's out, but they gave it to us early, which was really neat. So I was a fan, a very
And who
big fan.
knows? They haven't actually said that it's not going to return ever. Of course, Chaos Arena could make a return. Is that something you guys think you'd like to see in the future? Chaos Arena coming back for maybe another week of a wacky week, perhaps?
Oh yeah, of course. Anything to get players just active and doing something that's offset from the standard ladder grind, or just playing arena just to play arena. Doing something to get new players hyped, old players back into it. I think it's a great idea, always.
Same, Justin?
I totally agree. I'd love to see it come back, every few months, or even, maybe not too often, but I would definitely love to see more of it in the future. And I think that I kind of want to mention too that the way that they released just a small number of cards with it, like as an expansion and an event at the same time, I think was really kind of genius. Like, not only are people coming back for the event, right, but then they also have the opportunity to check out Constructed, at the same time because there's these new cards that you may end up actually getting to experiment with for the first time when you draft them. So, I think it was just really well done.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't really given my thoughts on it yet, but you guys who know me know that I'm more of a spike, as in, I play a lot of Arena, obviously, just to grind for cards, but mostly what I'm focused on is trying to improve myself as a constructed player, and, grinding the ladder even at times when it doesn't necessarily matter. I'm really focused on improvement, and when the game eventually hopefully gets a competitive scene, I'll be trying to, climb the ranks of that while continuously improving. So, you could safely say that something like Chaos Arena isn't really my thing, because I'm not really interested in like the wackiness of it. But I have to appreciate, it being for something that's not really my thing. It was a lot of fun. I'm not going to call it like a distraction. It's not really something I'd go out of my way to do. But since I have done it, I have to comment about how well it is done. Because there are people who are very interested in stuff like this. They play card games for fun because that's kind of the point. At the end, we all just find fun in different ways. Yeah. And for someone who likes this kind of thing, it was incredibly well done. Everything, even down to like the art on the lanes, like I just really enjoyed it. It didn't really seem like, for what it was, it had any flaws whatsoever. Besides maybe it introducing a Wabbajack bug. I think that's what.
Well, I mean, even for content producers such as ourselves, it gives you something else to give to your audience.
Oh yeah.
Just in another way to give back. Direwolf giving us this, and then us. It's like full circle. It's like they're seeing us play it, new players are seeing it, and it's kind of something for everybody, which is just really, really neat.
Yeah, and like you said, it came at a great time too, because I think we talked about this a long time ago in the podcast, but there were whispers around of a potential late 2016 release for the game, like an actual release out of open beta. Clearly something's held that up, whether it be mobile or back-end stuff. There have been a couple of Reddit posts from the developers about it, but it does show that even though they're still working towards the actual release as much as we want that to happen, they're like, hey, we love you open beta testers, here's an event for you guys. Not even just a release of cards, not just feed them some cards and they'll stop bothering us. They gave us a whole event, and they gave us something that, they clearly have put a lot of work into, that they used us to test this event, and hopefully we see it, with even improvements in the future. Maybe they'll just get rid of the zoo lane. They probably won't, though.
Yeah.
That's just me. But yeah, it's a really good event, and I think it came at a good time to show that they really care about the community, even though we are not currently as big of a community as we hopefully will be in the future. But yeah, actually, before we talk about the Madhouse Collection, which was released with the Chaos Arena, I would just like to ask a question. Since this has released, you can only actually get it with the in-game gold or money. Do you think this is something that you'd like to see in the future as well? Because it got a lot of complaints from people who come from Hearthstone who don't like how they do adventures, where you have to either buy them with a substantial amount of gold or real-life money, but you can't actually craft the cards until you get that wing. And that's kind of what happened with this expansion. You can't really craft the Madhouse Collection cards. You can even craft the monthly reward cards if you miss those, but you can't craft Madhouse Collection cards. You have to get it with the gold, which is 1,500 gold, or $10, I believe, in real money. What do you think, Justin? Do you think this is okay, or do you think in the future you'd like to see everything be craftable?
So, I have a couple thoughts on this. The first is sort of a practical matter. I feel like given how long we've been in in open beta, and how many soul shards a lot of us have amassed at this point, I think that if you just let everybody craft the cards off the bat, you might run into a problem where you're not making the people in the financial department of your company happy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
but
think about them.
Right. But you know what? 1,500 gold. I think this game's, especially with the as you're still leveling up and you're getting your three win rewards and stuff. I don't think that the gold thing is huge. I guess maybe I would have put it at 1,000 or something like that instead of 1,500, but I wasn't really concerned with that. Yeah, and I guess I hadn't really thought about it being analogous to a Hearthstone adventure, but that is interesting. I don't know. I guess I haven't really thought about this enough to have a strong opinion.
Yeah, because it's important. You don't have to buy the Madhouse Collection in order to play Chaos Arena. During the event, you could just pay your normal arena fee or use your normal arena ticket and choose Chaos Arena. It wasn't like you couldn't experience it without spending any money more than you normally would. It's just for the cards that we're talking about. And I think it sort of gets a pass for me because, The expansion isn't like, well, we'll just say it's not completely full of tier 1 playable cards. It has some really cool experimental cards. And I
Yeah.
think that's a big difference from what a Hearthstone adventure is. Because if you're playing Hearthstone competitively, you just have to get them all. You know, you can't just miss an adventure. But in
Right.
this game, I think this could get a pass. What do you think, Carl? You like the way it was done?
Yeah, I do. As someone who spends money on the things that he likes doing, I was fine with it. But I can see how some players, when because Legends is a free to play game. You can download it for free, you can play it for free, and I think that's what some people, like obviously that's what a lot of people like to do. They don't want to spend any money. They just want to casually play a game. And I think when those people, like, as they play the game more and more, because I was a Hearthstone free-to-play player for the first probably, like, 5 or 6 months that the game was out, before I wound up actually diving into it a little bit more. And, with Legends, me and you hit the ground, with money
You
bags.
hit the ground spending.
Yeah, it was what it was. But, for a free-to-play player, I think there's that, they get to that point when they realize it's, I'm playing this game often enough to where it's worth some of my money. I mean, you go out, like, I've been recently playing Pokemon Sun, and just to think about that, people go out and spend $40 on that game to play it. They could make Pokemon free to play, and then you like have to buy all your in-game stuff, but like that just doesn't make any sense in that market. But I think for games like this that are free to play, like if you want to stay free to play, but understand that you're playing with limitations. I never understood the whole complaint of the free to play player not having access to all the stuff that the guys who are spending money have access to. It was always a weird argument for me to get into, and I just sort of avoid those threads. But
Yeah, I think it's a matter of how much gold it
and
is.
you like playing it and you've invested time into it, spend a little bit of money on it. Like, I will always spend money based on what I think something's worth to me, and Legends to me is worth a lot of money. I like the game a lot, so I will spend my extra cash to play it. It's something I do. That's the decision I've made. So
Yeah, for us, and especially being probably Justin, who played this game what you may call a disproportionate amount of time compared to the normal person. Time is money, and because we spend so much time, it becomes worth the money because of the entertainment value we get from it, and of course the ability to, grow my stream, my YouTube channel, Justin's YouTube channel. That also is worth something, but it does go both ways, because if you don't want to spend the money, you have to compensate for time. And since time in-game is only really worth gold and not real money, it's just a matter of how reasonable they keep the gold costs. And I think for this it was fine based on how much you get gold. You can get gold pretty quickly.
Yeah, I can agree with Justin. I think 1,500 did seem like a lot. I think 1,000 was what I was thinking it was going to be before it came out, and then it was 1,500. So I was like, well, I guess I'm spending $10. But
Yeah, I just normally assume that it's $1 per 100 gold.
Yeah.
Is Arena though slightly different though, because it is $1 for an Arena run,
right, and they did give you like premiums and a ticket and everything.
Yeah, it actually is perfectly in line with the Arena costs, 100 gold or $1.50, and in the Chaos Arena Madhouse Collection was 1,000 gold or 1,500. So I guess it was sort of a test. I would be fine if it was 1,000. Especially, I don't want to say I don't, because I love the expansion. We'll talk about that in a minute. I really do. But based on the card quality, 1,000 gold seemed a little more reasonable to me. I think that would have been fine. But I guess they can monitor how much gold people actually have up to this point, and we can't. So maybe people have been stockpiling it, and they did want to encourage people to spend a little bit more real money to keep the production going. And I'm okay with that. If it's good for the game, it's good for me. Alright, so we moved on from Chaos Arena. Hopefully we can see that again in the future. I think we've all pretty much loved how it was done. And let's talk about the Madhouse Collection. This is the first, I guess you could call it expansion. It's only a 10-card expansion. Got some neutral cards and one card for each attribute, each color introduced. I'll flash them on screen for YouTube viewers while we're talking about them. If you're listening to this podcast after the fact in an audio-only format, you're out of luck, but you can check out all the cards on legends-decks.com. But yeah, this is the first expansion of introduced cards that don't include the monthly reward cards that we get one per month. So I'm going to start with Carl on this because I started with Justin last time. What do you think about this expansion? Has it performed up to standards for what you can expect from a 10-card expansion?
Yes. Just to, go off of what we were just talking about, just the value you get out of, 10 cards for $10. One of which being, and you got complete sets of them too. It wasn't like you just got one of each one of these. It was complete sets, 3 of all 10 cards. And that to me just screams value. I was all about it. And some of the cards have shown to be very, very good, which I'm sure we'll get into here shortly. But, I was a fan. I think almost like outside of maybe three or four of them are all seeing play a lot on the ladder. And I'm a fan. I think it was just done extremely well. Again, it was something, Direwolf and Bethesda didn't have to do for us, but they did. And here we are. It shook up the meta. It added a lot of, or it made a lot of decks relevant again, and yeah, it just added a lot to the game. So I'm a big fan. Anytime we can get anything new to play with, apart from the ordinary, I'm just all about.
As a quick aside, I did mislabel the arena. I have no idea what arena actually costs. I know I got it wrong, so I'm sorry. I just don't know. I have no idea what anything costs.
50 gold.
Someone should have corrected me. I've played so much
I
arena.
thought you said it. I was reading.
Arena costs less than the amount of gold I have. That's all I know. Just click it and I'm in.
Yeah.
Alright, yeah. Moving on to Justin for the Madhouse collection. What do you like about it?
I think I was looking through the cards. I think I've seen all of them except Shivering Apothecary and Forsaken Champion on the ladder in the last week. Those are the only two I think I haven't seen played. So I think they did a great job of introducing stuff that's playable. More so than just playable, though, what I really like about these cards is so many of them are sort of what I wish every of the monthly reward cards would be, and that it's a whole. If you're going to include this card in a deck, you're going to be building something that doesn't already exist, right? You're not just slotting, a card into a pre-existing deck. You're thinking about this as a way to build something completely new. And for such a small expansion to have developed so many new deck archetypes, I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking of, what Altar of Despair has done for Last Gasp decks, what Close Call has done for sort of silly decks, what Ring of Imaginary Might has done.
You calling Brad's deck silly?
Well, what Ring of Imaginary Might, Gardener of Swords, and Stone Shard Orc, they've all just really been a shot in the arm to archetypes that either didn't exist or just not seeing any play. Mm-hmm. I think it's a really cool collection of cards. Yeah, and the fact that I've seen 8 out of them, 8 out of 10 maybe, on the ladder, or however many there are, is just been really impressive to me.
Yeah, and there are cards that can fit into existing decks, but the thing about it is they feel like sort of maybe a unique role at the point where, yeah, you can maybe throw it into an existing deck, but you get more value from it if you can think about even some changes to the existing deck, like Illusory Mimic. It didn't create Mid-Range Scout. That's a deck that, people have been curving with Scout for a long time because Solarist Marshal and Blackworm Necromancer are good cards. But now we have another good card, and this good card isn't just good. It's better if you can build for it, so we've seen a lot of people play Territorial Viper and stuff. And, the same with even the Wisp Mother Relentless Raider OTK. We've seen that has technically been a combo that people have tried to pull off for months now. But cards like Merchant's Camel give it some consistency. Cards like Close Call also give it some consistency. And it's really cool to see how they're, affecting decks that you wouldn't even really think about on first glance when you look at the card. And, of course, the obvious, I'm going to experiment the hell out of this card and create something entirely new, like people trying to... Corey Millhouse trying to Ring of Imaginary Might Portcullis OTK people.
Right,
and,
that's
had so much hype at the beginning.
Oh yeah,
I have hardly seen it since.
Yeah, that was the first thing I tried.
Yeah, I was like, I can make a Portcullis 11/11. Let's go.
Yeah, I also had some high expectations that maybe weren't lived up to with that particular card. But let's go through and so what was your favorite so far with experimentation? Because obviously it's still kind of a relatively new expansion. What was your favorite card so far? Out of the expansion, not necessarily for competitiveness or competitive viability. What's your favorite card overall, Carl, from this expansion?
When the set first dropped, the first card I tried to mess with was Swindler's Market. I thought that card had just infinite possibility. I was like, holy crap, they foreshadowed this with the first monthly card. I can't even think of the name of it right now. The 6-drop that gives you 4
Smuggler's Hall.
Smuggler's Hall,
yeah, I lost to that earlier. That exact combo.
I was like, right. I was like,
me
holy
too.
crap.
I lost to that today also.
Oh.
Yeah, Swindler's Market with Close Calls and Markarth Bannerman and Smuggler's Hall. Like, let's go. That just seems insane, and it just ended up being too many pieces. I don't think the deck's got what it takes to be super competitive right now. But that was the most interesting card to me. I thought that was going to be the one that kind of broke out. But then all the Gardener stuff started coming out, and we started playing with Miracle Ganja's Mono Blue with the
bats,
with the charge bats, yeah. And we added Gardener to that, and that's the deck that took me to Legend. So I've had a ton of fun with Gardener, and I've just seen the card explode just now recently in the past week and a half with the new Sorcerer build, and I think that's probably like my favorite card currently. It's just Gardener's just it's a lot of room to build on. As they continue to bring out more items. This card just gets better and better, and I think it's a card that's going to stay in metas for a very long time.
Nice. What do you think, Justin? What's your favorite card out of the expansion?
I gotta go with Stone Shard Orc. I know it's the simplest probably, and the most straightforward and easy to use, but what I like about it is both that it fits what red, I think of as a really red card. I think it fits the strength character profile pretty well. I also really like the fact that it gives an additional piece of removal to a deck that doesn't really run a lot of it. And I don't think Orcs are a good deck necessarily, but I've had a lot of fun playing them, and I think Stone Shard Orc is a really, really perfectly well-designed card. I think it's balanced. I think it's really neat. I think that the best card is probably Gardener's Swords or Illusory Mimic, but my favorite is Stone Shard Orc.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I played a lot of Stone Shard Orc recently because I was experimenting with the Crusader Orc deck, and
Right.
I have to say it has lived up to my initial hype, which wasn't jumping out of my seat or anything, but I was like, oh, this is a pretty good Orc. I'm gonna play it, and it's gonna be pretty good, and it's been pretty good, and that's really cool to see them supporting that archetype.
I agree.
Sometimes that's all you need is a pretty good card.
Right? Yeah, met expectations.
Yeah.
Worked out.
But I think my favorite card, and I have to agree with Justin that the Gardener of Swords and Mimic stand out to me as cards that'll see play for a longer period of time, and along with the Orc as well. These cards seem more constructed playable than most of the others, but I have to say my favorite card is Altar of Despair, and not just because it gave me a pretty sick YouTube video from a highlight that you all should definitely check out, shameless plug, but I have to say I like cards that I think are completely, just trash unplayable tier, that changed my mind. And I'm not saying it's, the best card ever, and it definitely has its weaknesses, and I would probably never pick it with a of sound mind in Arena. But, I thought it was just not going to be good, going to be slow. And the card has changed my mind. It has a place, and it does very cool things. And the implications of what it can do, which is, decide basically, give you the knowledge of what you're going to be able to play next turn. You can just build your deck accordingly. It gives you deck building insight. You want to build your deck a certain way. You also play a certain way, knowing what's going to come out of it next turn. And, all that's just very cool, along with the fact that, obviously, underrated cards coming to light are pretty awesome. That's why we all love the Orb of Vermina, because we found out it was kind of playable in one or two decks in one or two matchups, and that was pretty great, because before that people just didn't play it. But Altar of Despair, kind of the same vein. Don't know how much it will be used in the future, but yeah, I like this card from a design standpoint quite a bit.
Well, to add, I was interested to see, they gave us 5 neutral cards, which all seem, relatively playable. Your Close Call being the one that, has a ton of combo synergy. And even Merchant's Camel, I think it's kind of flying under the radar still. That card seems like it's just going to be, it's only going to get better.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a reverse schemer that can be played in just about anything that wants to dig through a deck. Especially if we start getting graveyard strats later on. The card just could become very incredible. And it's already good right now. I'm running it in almost all the control lists that I'm playing. I like the card a lot. I'm interested to see. All of these cards just seem like they have tons and tons of growth potential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. And they did make the attribute ones a little bit more narrow. You only play them in certain decks. You obviously only play Gardener of Swords in a deck that has a lot of items. Orc is an Orc card. You play it in Orcs. The Swindler's Market you kind of have to build around. Ring of Imaginary Might is only really good if you build around it. Shivering Apothecary, honestly, who knows?
Let's keep it 100 here. Shivering Apothecary is not a playable card.
but that card is ranked as good on the Between the Lanes Arena tier list, and I stand by that. I think it's pretty good in Arena.
I mean, I guess if I had to choose between that and I think I'd take the Mud Crab actually.
Well, it depends on the curve at that point, Justin. Come on now. I already have a 1-drop.
I'm just kind of screwing around. I've taken it in Arena too actually.
Yeah,
I mean anything that grants extra value.
Yeah, I mean not all the time, but free Elixir of Deflection or free Skirmisher's Elixir, those are pretty valuable cards.
You heard it here first on the BTL podcast. Take Shivering Apothecary. every single time.
Yeah.
I couldn't say the card's name to save my life.
Yeah, and you can't even pick it over Mudcrab because they're not the same rarity. I don't think. I'm pretty sure it's not a common. Don't hold
Oh
me to that.
darn!
Oh man.
I love
Larson got my hopes up.
the furious typing in the background to check the rarity. I like.
No, that's not even me. That's Lucky. He's talking to some dinosaurs. God, mic situation. We'll fix it one day, guys. It'll be fine. All right. So before we move on, I have a fun last bit of last topic for us to go through. Before I do that, I want to notify those who are watching this live streamed right now on my Twitch channel that this is sort of the point where I ask chat if they have any questions. Feel free to type them in chat now, and after I discuss this next topic with the guys, we will basically just take chat questions. Anything you guys want us to talk about relating to the game or the meta or, cards. Just basically anything you want. If it's a general question, we can all discuss it, or if you have a question for a specific person, we can do it that way too. Just start typing in chat, and we'll go through a couple of those in a second. But before we read through a couple of those once they're typed, I kind of want to talk about the future. I might make this a running thing, since obviously we hope things will change a little bit between the podcasts, every single one of them. Maybe not as substantial as a 2-month break, but but yeah, since a lot of things have changed, I would like to talk sort of and ask you guys what do you want to see going forwards from maybe Bethesda and Direwolf? What are you hoping to see? What are you hoping to have happen for this game? Obviously, official release sometime, but besides that, I guess, what do you guys hoping holds in store for the future of the game in the next couple months or even weeks? I'll start with Justin.
What do I want to see besides release? Well, it kind of tied into the release. I'd like to see advertising for the game because I think that there are a lot of people out there who played Skyrim who would hop into this the minute they saw an ad that reminded them of it. But as far as the future of the mechanics of the game go, the one thing I kind of want to see is a little bit more of the Elder Scrolls lore flavor, and I think there are a couple ways you could do that with kind of incorporating Daedric quests as a type of support card or something like that. I think that there are, you mentioned you're a Spike. I think there are those Vorthos players out there. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Who would be into that sort of thing. I don't really count myself among them, although I'm sure I would have fun trying to accomplish a Daedric quest. Beyond that, I'd like to see, when the first expansion hits, I'd like to see the level cap raised. I think that gaining rewards when you gain levels in this game was a really fulfilling experience, and I miss it.
Well, you just ranked up too fast. Maybe you could slow down a little bit.
I needed that Blood Magic Lord, man.
Yeah, for me too. It really, really did.
What else do I want to see? I think that's really it. I'd love to see more dual color cards sooner rather than later. Maybe ones that are sort of built around kind of like a lot of these Madhouse Collection cards. That's something I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think limiting them, now that you're talking about that a little bit, I think limiting them for the first expansion to the number they are, we have a lot of cards right now, and by expansion I mean just the core set of cards that you have currently. I think limiting them kind of makes a lot of sense because, you want new players to open packs and be able to use the vast majority of cards, and you can use any blue card and any number of blue decks, but, you pull an Iron, that's going to go in a mage deck, or it's just going to sit in your collection. So I kind of like the way they did it so far, but yeah, more of those in the future would be super sweet. Carl, what do you want to see?
Oh man, I hadn't really given it too much thought. Me personally, I'm still enjoying the game very much, which is odd because not too much has changed. I didn't think that I would still feel the way I feel about the game that I did, the first time I booted it up. But that's a new experience for me. But like Justin said, the skill or the level cap that's just a genius suggestion. What a way to get just the old school players back into it and grinding again. I love that idea. That's an incredible idea. So that would be cool to see. As well as just opening up, I guess just more rewards in general. I'd like for there to be a way maybe to gain more quests from doing quests. I don't know if that's a possibility at all, but because I still don't know what the gold cap is.
So wait, what do you mean,
I've
kind
never
of how
reached
they
any
do
of
the titles, or?
Yeah, titles and just quests in general. Just opening up more of them, making them, I guess, a little bit more intricate would be cool, and maybe for higher gold values, that would be neat. Because I enjoy doing that. I don't get to play as much as I'd like to play. I'm sure you know this more than most others, CVH. But just coming back to a quest is usually one of the things that I usually start off when I do start playing again. It's one of the things I go after. because I just enjoy completing them. I've always been, that type of gamer. So
Yeah, it's
more
fulfilling.
intricate quests and yeah, just bigger quests that take more time. More story mode stuff would be cool. Uh, but I'm sure that's something that comes with expansions as well. So I guess we got to get to that point first. But
Yeah.
those are all the things that I think I'd want. But I think all that just generally comes with the growth of the game. So getting to those points is, I guess, where we want to be. So
Those are all really good suggestions. I definitely agree, mostly with some of the lore stuff, because, like Justin, I don't really know the lore at all. I mean, maybe Justin
Same.
probably knows the lore. I just don't know the
you
lore.
and I are in the same boat. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't. But I know a lot of people do, and, I have fun completing the lore-based title quests, even though I really have no idea what any of the characters are, or even, in most cases, how to pronounce them correctly. It's just that's like my main thing, and I really should look it up before I say them on stream or videos, but I don't. But I enjoy getting the titles for them anyway, and if I feel like that, then a lot of people coming from Skyrim or other Elder Scrolls games must love them. And I definitely agree with the advertising thing. Hopefully that'll pick up when the game goes full release, which will hopefully be soon, as we all hope. And my big thing that we haven't really talked about, I don't know how neither of you mentioned it, but spectator mode is the big thing for me that I really hope we get.
Oh
soon.
yeah,
Yeah, come on, guys. It's okay.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. You won't forget about it when the Between the Lanes Open series starts and can be streamed via spectator mode. But yeah, that would be
Nice.
amazing. Because it also, it increases interactivity between the players. Right now, the streams and the videos, and everyone's really interactive with content creators and Reddit going on. But, when the game gets bigger, it'd be nice to be able to, interact in a new way, which is, watching each other play, maybe helping each other out. Who knows?
I think
talking
we'll all
about that
need
kind of
more
stuff.
friend slots first.
I was
Oh, yeah.
just about to say that. Yeah, my friends list, and I need more.
Yeah, it needs to happen.
It does.
They had to increase the cap twice in Hearthstone, and people still complain about it. It's like 200 right now, but I have to imagine that'll be coming soon. It can't be the hardest thing to patch into.
Yeah.
And if we go long enough, I'll just have, everyone who plays the game will be on the friends list in, the little waiting
Just
queue.
imagine, since nobody has this many friends, jeez.
Yeah, I really don't know anyone on my friends list, really. It's a bunch of people who just never log on right now. Need to do the purge. Well, that's about it for the future. I guess it's about that time to take the chat's questions. I'll start with the ones that I'm seeing first. Blackdrop says, do you think Camel's a solid choice in Sorcerer Control with Master of Arms, Flesh Atronach, and Blood Magic Lord to retain value from the discarded cards? I'm gonna say probably not, but I think that's the kind of thing that could be expanded upon in the future. That's kind of what I guess Carl was talking about with Graveyard Interaction. I don't think it's particularly great like right now, but yeah, I think that kind of thing is where Camel will see some serious use in the future. I don't know if anyone else
Yeah,
has
I
anything
don't
about that.
think anything interacts with the graveyard that's not RNG based right now. If I'm thinking correctly, like the only cards that come to mind are Aaron, the Blood Magic spells, and
Well, Master of Arms
and,
isn't really RNG based, but if you have more than
Right.
two, that it becomes RNG based.
yeah. So it's that's a good point, but yeah, you just need better, I think, graveyard effects first, and that just comes with, again, growth of the game. This game has a lot of avenues it can go down to grow and expand, just card wise, and the graveyard's definitely just a huge unexplored area. So
Yep. So Jinja1234 says, what do orcs need to become a viable meta deck? And meaning warrior synergy deck, specifically warrior, because we've seen orcs like Justin and I have said in other classes. But Justin, what do you think warrior orcs need to become a viable orc-based synergy deck?
A 2/2 orc for 2 in purple with last gasp, draw a card.
That seems pretty good.
oh,
That's
You're
very
ready for that
specific.
one.
Yeah, he really was.
I've been playing a lot of orcs lately, man.
I like it a lot. I built an orc warrior deck, and I don't think it's optimized at all. I just put wood orc headhunter in there just because I could finally craft the card. Because we didn't talk about that at all. They the legendaries you get from the packs that you can buy now. That's just incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Jeez. Well,
Like, if
oops.
you buy the 60 card pack bundle, you just get any 2 legendaries you want effectively. You can just enchant the golden ones you get and get any 2 legendaries now, plus just an extra legendary.
Yeah,
Like, that's
I
just
should.
absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and also we didn't really talk about the little bundle they did, like the new player bundle, but get 5 packs and some alternate art cards and everything for, what is it, $5 in the store? Yeah, they're doing
It's
good
10
promotion.
packs, but yeah.
10 pack? Is it 10 packs? Who even knows?
Yeah.
I thought the first one was 10
Support.
and this one was 5, but I don't even know. Maybe it's 10.
Yeah, these little bundle deals have been great, and I love the alternate art too. I mean, Crushing Blow is my favorite card in the game, and so to see some new art on that's been really cool. I
Yeah,
like
if they
it a
pick
lot.
this up and do end promotional deals like this when the game releases and to get a bunch of new players in, that's just like giving a lot of value away. It's pretty great. So yeah, that was a. You don't think a slightly better loot hoarder from Hearthstone is a little too good, Justin? I mean, we already have slightly better novice engineer with Thieves Guild recruit. I guess it'd be fine.
Oh, Raw Wolf was right. It was 5-pack. Sorry.
Aha.
I think
The first one was 10.
I think if it was in blue or in green, it would be a problem. But I don't think it would be a problem in purple.
Cool.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to test. It sounds like a super playable card.
Oh, here's an interesting question. I might miss some. I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna. You don't want to take this forever. But Moxfire Gaming has a good question. What buffs do you guys want to see? I don't know, so I'm gonna pass it over to Carl. Put him on the hot seat.
Yeah, I mean, ever since like I heard that orcs were just the end-all be-all in closed beta, I've wanted them to sort of get back to that. I want to play an orc deck that just feels like it's doing the right things all the time instead of this weird clunky aggro deck. And finally crafting Wood Orc Headhunters, and actually just committing to the deck and playing it has been a lot of fun. But the deck just still doesn't feel right. It feels like it's still missing that card. And like Justin said, the 2-for-2 or the 2-for-2/2 that draws a card last cast just seems like maybe the thing that could set it over the top. And that just seems like fun. So maybe just doing something to orcs again. One other slight buff. Or maybe even just, I know Corey was talking about goblins earlier in your chat. It'd be interesting to see, because there aren't a lot of support cards, and the one main good one got an incredible nerf in the very beginning, so it'd be interesting to see if, those sort of clan decks ever can become a thing again, because I always enjoyed doing that. That was always one of my favorite things about a lot of the physical card games I played in the past, was playing decks that focused on, just very straightforward strategies that involved, a certain amount of cards, kind of like the Dweemer mechanic in this one. So decks like that, just getting some sort of nerf to be cool,
buff
and playable. Some sort of, I keep saying nerf.
Don't nerf it again.
Yeah, just nerf everything, guys. But giving those clan decks, some sort of buff to make them a little bit more playable would be super cool. I don't know what those buffs would be, because I just haven't given it much thought. I'm happy with where the game's at right now, but something to play goblins a little bit more aggressively, something to play orcs a little bit more aggressively would be really cool.
What do you think, Justin? Any buffs that you'd like to see specifically?
There's a handful of cards that are rares with just a single keyword that I feel like they're useful arena filler, I guess. I'm thinking Lowland Troll, which is not a great card, but there are times when you need a 7-drop for whatever reason in your curve in arena, and it can do some serious work in there. I guess I wouldn't mind seeing stuff like just small little abilities added to some of those cards. Night Predator is a card that feels super disappointing for an epic, which Breakthrough and Regenerate.
Well, just don't upgrade into it, and you're fine.
Right.
Take the shadow.
I think that Regenerate was nerfed pretty hard at one point in closed beta, and as a result, I think a lot of the cards with Regenerate are still kind of overcosted for what they do now. And I think that you could make some tweaks to beef up the playability of those cards without breaking anything, because right now they don't really see any play.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, Carl, you said you thought Regenerate was going to be really strong, or was what I was just thinking wrong?
It seemed incredible, but I'm assuming what the nerf was that you regenerated at the end of your turn. Am I right or wrong?
Hey man, he's bypassing the NDA by being silent.
it is what it is. But if that's what the buff actually was to regenerate, I think that ability does become what I wanted it to be when I first read it.
Man, now you said buff and you meant nerf.
It's just
Jeez.
I'm just lost, guys. But it regenerate. Yeah, that's an ability that just never really seems relevant. 80% of the time. So
yeah,
that's a good point.
Let's see here. Wow, there's a lot of questions. Let's see. So the question that I saw was something about Altar of Despair. What are your thoughts on Altar of Despair? Do you think it's the type of card we need to see more of? Personally, I think it's a really great design as far as it's a card that makes you think about deck. I already talked about this a little bit, but yeah, it's a really cool combo card, and we really don't have too many of those combo cards. There's good aggro, good mid-range, good control, good ramp decks, but nothing too intricate. which you wouldn't really expect from a core set. But yeah, this is a really sweet card, and I don't know how many of those intricate combo cards we need to see, because if a card like Altar of Despair was too good, all of a sudden that's really unfun for a lot of people. We've seen very intricate, very good decks in Hearthstone that they're the things that get nerfed the fastest because wow, some spikes love them because they can navigate everything perfectly. They aren't necessarily fun for newer players to lose to because it kind of feels like you're losing to a solitaire deck, and that's never really fun. At least with Solarist Marshall, they're only taking 15 seconds to make you concede. Altar of Despair, that would be a little unfun. But also, it's not really for the average person, and this isn't something that really matters yet because of no spectator mode nor tournaments. For the average viewer, it's not really that fun to watch someone playing solitaire, even if there's a lot of stuff going on. Like, people loved my highlight of 8 elusive schemers, but if that's the kind of mirror match that was happening every single game in every tournament, we'd get pretty bored really fast. So I do like that it's a card that makes people think. I think it's the kind of card we'd like to see more of in that respect, and I think, good supports in general we'd like to see more of in that aspect as well. But, I think they just need to be careful with how they print them. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I want to say that my favorite Magic deck of all time is Lantern Control, the modern deck. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Not at all.
It does what you're talking about, where it takes a bunch of otherwise unplayable cards that do really narrow things, and together, basically forms a prison deck that locks your opponent out of the game. And it's not fun to watch, and it's not fun to play particularly either. So I think, but it is my favorite deck in Magic. But
Good tastes.
Yeah. I mean, these are matches that win through concession. So I think you got to be careful with that sort of thing. I think Ultra Despair is cool. I think having a handful of those kind of cards in each set is a really good idea because there are people who are really drawn to that sort of thing. And I think Ultra Despair specifically is at a power level that's, when I first saw it costing 6, I was like, oh, that's unplayable, just because it was a 6-cost support card. Haven't played around with it a little bit and seen other people play it, like watching your video, which was great, by the way.
Thank you.
I've kind of changed my tune on it, and I'm glad it exists. It's not really my style of card, that specifically, but I think it's a really cool design, and I would like to see more like that in the future.
Nice, yeah. And it's balanced in an expansion that doesn't contain mono crazy cards. A lot of them are pretty, like I said, Stone Shard Orc, you see it, you're like, oh, I understand this card. I've read it, and now I understand where it will be played in. And it basically is exactly as good as you can anticipate. So it's good that they have a balance of cards that all types of players can find use in, not just all types of decks, but all types of players with how deep they want to delve into the cards.
Right.
It's just tough to play a game that takes half an hour and then lose that game. Like, those are the things that usually give me cramps. So
hey, I won.
Yeah, you did.
Snaxy Man lost, and he hosted
But
me like 10 minutes later because he was just done playing the game for the day.
Exactly. Like, it's just games like that wear you out. And like Justin said, you had too many of those cards that all of a sudden just make games go very long and kind of take the fun out of it for the player on the other side of the table. Like, that can be very offsetting. So, but it's a cool card. It's a neat design, and it'll be neat to see how it evolves with everything else. But it's, I don't know if I could sit and even playing a game that takes that long. Ugh.
So I'm gonna go. There's 2 questions left I want to answer if we have time. Do we have time, guys? I think we have time. All right. So the first question is: do you guys have any underrated or sleeper cards? This question comes to us from scrolled right by it. Riker Gaming. Any sleeper cards or underrated cards that aren't played as often now, but may become a core addition to meta decks in the future? Let's start with Carl.
I think one of the main ones, just one of the ones that comes to mind almost immediately, is Ravenous Hunger. I think the card's very good in certain metas, and can be better depending on the decks that it's played in. But it's surprising that a 2-for-4/1 doesn't see play in more yellow decks, just because I think yellow typically isn't the aggro color. But it's just like a one strength or a one defense less werebat, without prophecy for 2. And
yeah, that's pretty good when you think about it like that.
Right? Yeah. It gets drained, almost every time, especially if you're the reactive player. Which is what that card kind of wants to be doing. It just kind of gets you back into the game, or it just ends up being a 4/1 that hits your opponent in the face. So I think that card's very, very good and just doesn't see as much play as I think it deserves. And it might just be because it's an epic. and a lot of players, aren't crafting it because it's not, the go-to two-drop for a lot of decks. And
Hmm.
again, like I said, yellow just isn't generally seen as the more aggressive deck, but
Yeah, I mean,
that's a card that comes to mind.
I think a lot of it's because a lot of the decks you'd want it against right now play Murkwater Witch, but yeah, I totally agree that if a lot more straight up aggro decks start playing, non Murkwater Witch colors, like, mid range decks or aggro decks and other colors, I think Ravenous Hunger, yeah, that's a good one, Carl. Good counter to those decks. What do you think, Justin?
So my favorite color is Endurance, so I got a couple cards that my eye's been on. I think Angry Grawl, and it's like, what the hell is that? It's the four drop 2/4 regenerate summon +2/+2 if your opponent has more cards in hand. I think that would slot pretty well into some of the aggressive sorcerer decks that are out there right now. That it's not seen any play, and I think any kind of aggressive sorcerer deck or a sorcerer based zoo deck could get a lot of mileage out of Angry Grawl.
Yeah, I could see that.
Um, I think Black Marsh Warden's an interesting one in that it saw quite a bit of play in the beginning of open beta, and now sees basically no play at all.
Yeah, I was reading a Reddit thread earlier and someone was like, yeah, you don't want Black Marsh Warden, that card is bad. And I was like, wow, I remember when I had to craft my third copy.
Yeah, I think
Because
that
I was
card's-
trying to net deck Justin Larson's big dumb Scout Ramp deck, and he was just playing them, so I had to too.
Yeah, I think it's still a pretty good card. I think that part of the problem I had with that card, I think part of the reason it stopped seeing so much play is when Control Mage got big. I mean, Black Marsh Warden's just begging to get executed or something like that. But I think it's still pretty good. And then alongside those, I think I had one more. I think that Gloomwraith is seriously underplayed. I mean, I don't mind getting a 4/4 for 4 most of the time if I'm either the aggressor or the reactive player at any given point. And the potential for this card to just spiral out of control, I think, is pretty real. And I'm a huge fan of Gloomwraith. So
Yeah. My underplayed card is on Gollum the Listener.
oh,
I
good
think-
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do have two more to add, if unless
Go
you
for
had
it.
some you wanted to talk about.
No,
CVH.
I was just gonna meme on Ungolem for a while. Go for it.
Maricon actually is the one who turned me on to these, but Blackmail and Moment of Clarity.
Oh yeah.
Maricon said that like Moment of Clarity is probably one of his favorite cards to mess around with because it just gives you options to almost the entire game a lot of the time. And for two Magicka, it's not. You can just weave it into turns, especially if you're like a control deck or a more late game centric deck. And some of the things you can get off Moment of Clarity, I mean, are just insane. It's just kind of like Balmora in that respect, where it just you can just get a giant 10-cost creature, an Odoving or something, or just a counterpiece or some sort of removal to deal with certain threats. But just the options that card gives you are literally every possible option. So it's interesting to see that no one plays it because of the RNG of it, but it could just be a good card or something that more control decks kind of want to mess around with. And then Blackmail too, if in certain matchups, especially if we play more tournaments in the future that involve sideboards, Blackmail could be that one thing that you just tech in against ramp strategies if you're a ramp or not a ramp deck, but you could tech in against basically just any other color and draw certain pieces of their deck that can be very good. So it's interesting to see. Those cards see almost literally no play, and
Yeah.
They
For
could
those
be
of
very
you in
good.
the chat, I'll just caution you now. If you're listening to a Moment of Clarity, you're like, oh, I want to test this card out. The chat's making a good point right now that it's easy to forget about if you don't play Moment of Clarity. Wait until the next hot fix or next patch happens, because right now you can just see what cards your opponent gets off Moment of Clarity, and that takes a bit of the fun out of it. So wait until that bug is fixed.
Great.
It gets a lot less good if you can just play around it exactly, when before it was just going to be totally crazy out of nowhere. Yeah.
I gotta say I love Moment of Clarity too, and I got a quick funny story about it. In closed beta, the first deck I came up with before I started building my awful scout deck was an action mage deck, and I included one copy of Moment of Clarity in it, and then posted the list. And that back then there weren't a whole lot of people posting lists and stuff, so you could, if I saw a guy play Moment of Clarity when I'm playing against a mage, like I knew everything else in that guy's list instantly, and I had fun with that. But I think that card's great too.
Nice. So my last question is, we're ending with a softball. we're just gonna sort of beat around and talk about this little intricate gameplay related question. Someone was talking about the art in chat. Don't know how it happened, but it sort of developed into a discussion. What do we think about the art direction? We don't really talk about this too much, but we've all played different games which have very different ways of looking at art. Justin, well, come on now, Carl, don't laugh. It's true. Are you thinking of the Kaijudo art? Because I'm thinking of the Kaijudo art.
Yeah.
And Justin's played Magic, and they're known for pretty, I guess you could call it, mature art. And we've all played Hearthstone to a degree, and they have their sort of style. What do we think about the style of art in this game? Let's start with Justin.
I absolutely love it. Obviously, as a guy who's spending his free time playing card games, I'm not claiming to be the most, erudite, mature person in the world. But when I see
that was a vocabulary word.
That was.
Right. Well, I had a couple of years where I had nothing to do but read. But when I sit down and look at the Hearthstone board and the Hearthstone cards, I feel like a child. Right. I almost feel a little like intellectually offended, and and I feel like the art here is great. I mean, like it's like kind of classic high fantasy art, and I really enjoy it. With just enough of the bizarre Elder Scrolls flair, like the evil, the talking crabs, and all that stuff, that really makes it just strange enough to really hold my attention. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually what Spencer said, Carl, about this art too. He called it high fantasy. He said he was a big fan of it. Carl, what do you think about the art? You like it?
Yeah, no, I like it a lot. It's nice to look at something that's visually pleasing again, which was something we had sort of lost in the later years of our card game playing. Just talking to CVH here.
Kaijudo.
Yeah,
just Google image search that, boys.
Right. Yeah, the art is just very, very refreshing. Everything just looks really good. I'm interested to see if they continue to buff up the images of some of their premiums, because it just seems like that was sort of a last minute thing that they started doing with a lot of cards. They just kind of gave them a shimmer. They didn't really do anything to them, whereas they did some crazy art add-ons to some of their premiums and gave the other ones almost nothing. So I'm interested to see if they continue to build on that like they did with Ice Storm and just some of the other cards that they've changed with their art. But I enjoy it very, very much.
Yeah, it's definitely a work in progress.
And we talked about it just to sort of build on the art. I was talking to Gym Class Heroes about this the other night. The idea of different playmats. We always talk about card backs, but in this game, much unlike Hearthstone, there's a ton of different game boards. But the ability to go through and actually purchase or obtain different sides of the board for yourself.
Ooh, but your opponent could see that as well, maybe.
And your opponent could see it. Yeah, it could be very, very an interesting. Just easy add-on if that's something they're building towards. I thought that would be a very cool thing to do.
Oh man, never thought I'd be using a spell ground again when I started playing online card games.
Right, yeah. So it's just something that I think a lot of players would get excited about, and I think we should try to make that voice for that a little bit louder, because that's like one thing that I'd really want.
Yeah, I personally am still a fan of the card backs in Hearthstone. That's one of the few things along with Spectator mode that I wish would carry over, just the card backs. But as far as the art of the cards and just the design of them, I'm a huge fan. And I'm looking forward to see what they do with the game board in the future. Obviously, things are still changing, and all of a sudden the Ring of Magicka has appeared on the board as a new thing we can use. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the art direction in the future. I do like it. And I think that's pretty much, unless anyone has anything to add about that, I think that's pretty much all we have for this podcast. It's been a little bit long, but we had a lot to talk about because, basically, I've been lazy, and we're just now getting back to doing the Between the Lanes podcast. Thank you so much, as always, to EarthP0w3R, and especially to JustinLarson for being our guest this time. It was great to talk to you, and before we sign off, I'd like to give both of you, starting with Justin, just a chance to plug yourselves. Just tell people, why they should search you and where they should find you.
No, okay. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for having me on here. Like I said earlier, I really appreciate all the work that you do, hyping the game up and supporting the community. So thank you. Hope you keep doing that.
Likewise.
Thank you. I make videos on YouTube. My channel is JustinLarson because for some reason I couldn't get Justin Larson because it's a pretty common name, I guess. And yeah, I release videos most days of the week, playing just a variety of decks, usually not tier 1 stuff. And if you're interested, and I have a whole video series about tips to up in your game, and I just started a new video series where I'm examining each 2-color combination and talking about things you can do in those colors. And yeah, I just really love this game, and I love the community, and stop on by, and I respond to all the comments in the videos, so feel free to let me know anything you have to say.
Now, are there plans for a Justin Larson stream sometime in the future? I know you have like technical difficulties now, but
Yeah.
should they follow your Twitch just in case?
Yeah, I have amassed like 30 or 40 Twitch followers somehow, um, despite never having streamed. You know, I would say that at this point I'm not making any attempts again because I cannot get any better internet where I live. I live in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. Um, but yeah, you can just check me out on YouTube, and like I said, message me or something, and I'll respond. And if there's anything you want to see me play, let me know too, because like I said, I play fun stuff. So
Awesome. Carl, where can they find you?
Um, YouTube and Twitter. I'd also, like to say as well, thank you, Justin Larson, for all you do. I know we haven't interacted too much in the past, but I do watch your YouTube videos. Every now and then I'll catch some of them when you do post them. And if you guys aren't subscribed to this guy on YouTube yet, if there is a Legends player that exists who hasn't seen Justin Larson, he is the guy to go to for everything YouTube. Just a lot of great content coming out of him, and I enjoy it, and I think all of you would as well. So definitely go check him out on YouTube. And then you can find me on YouTube and Twitter as well, and I try to stream, 2 or 3 times a week. So, yeah, just
Now
check
that
out
stream
all
is
those
at
meetings.
EarthP0w3R, just for you guys to know.
Yes, EarthP0w3R. I will be streaming directly after this podcast, so if you guys want to check that out, you are more than welcome to stop by. I would love
I
to have
had
it.
no idea. Well, to plug Between the Lanes a bit, this broadcast brought to you by my site, Between the Lanes. Be sure to stay tuned to BetweenTheLanes.net. In the coming days especially, we have our next iteration of the Meta Snapshot currently being worked on, and we probably won't have that for you any later than the 31st of this month. I'd like to keep it a monthly thing. To find me, obviously you're on my Twitch right now if you're watching this live, twitch.tv/IMCVH, and youtube.com/CVH Music. I stream daily. This has been a pretty long one, so thank you to anyone who's in the chat right now sticking around for this 6-hour stream. And YouTube, pretty much daily videos, more or less, almost trying not to miss a day, but yeah, be sure to follow me there as well. Twitter, twitter.com/IMCVH. And that's basically it for my stuff. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for, I guess, EarthP0w3R and Justin Larson once again. You can find this podcast being uploaded. I'll post the link to wherever that is in the description of wherever you're watching it now. It'll be on YouTube directly after this. But yeah, stay tuned to the website. Be sure to drop follows to all of these fine gentlemen who've guest starred on this podcast. And I will see you guys next time.